Hello, BookTube. I've got some mail for you on a Sunday. It's cool and overcast here. It rained a little bit in the morning, and we've got some real heat coming our way for the next couple of days. But there was no mail yesterday at all. There was no activity of any kind yesterday that was not Frida related. None. It was all Frida's day. But it turned out mail was delivered very late. There are 2 packages from publishers and 1 box that I believe is from one of you. So let's see what we have here. Let's see what we have. Oh, great. Okay, the first one is a finished copy of something that I've already read, and it is wonderful. I can wholeheartedly recommend it to you. So that's great. I'm glad to have a finished copy. This is Meg Lowman's book, The Arbornaut. Cover is a little bit bent. The dust jacket, I mean, is a little bit bent. That's a shame. It's a pretty thing, but I think that could probably be bent back. This is Meg Lowman's book, The Arbornaut, and the letters are recessed. Very nice. And this is the memoir of a pioneer of studying the upper canopies of forests. We've seen this already on this channel, but I've, in the meantime, had a chance to read it, and it's terrific. Meg Lowman is one of the original pioneers in the field of forest canopy ecology. Wait for science. Okay. Meg Lowman is one of the original pioneers in the field of forest canopy ecology. There was a time when most tree scientists focused primarily on the trunks of trees and on what could be observed from the forest floor. But as a young graduate student in Australia in the 1970s and early 80s, Meg Lowman decided, with a homemade climbing rig and slingshot in hand, to ascend into the canopy and see what she could learn. What she found was a whole new world and a wealth of biodiversity. Roughly 50% of all land-dwelling creatures live in forest canopies high above us. Lowman was hooked, becoming one of the world's first arbonauts and launching a career that would help to revolutionize forest ecology at a time when field biology was almost entirely a male-dominated pursuit. And this is terrific. It will open your eyes to this world that Meg Lowman, more than anybody else, discovered. This comes out on August 10th. I'm glad to have a finished copy. The only downside to the book is that Lowman is fairly certainly convinced that the upper canopies are doomed, that mankind has doomed the elaborate forest systems of the world, that they've gone beyond the point of no return. I have to hope in this case that she's wrong about that, although if anybody's going to be right about it, it's going to be her. But anyway, I can recommend the book, those of you nature fans out there. What is this next one? Oh, okay, fantastic. All right, I didn't request this. This is due in July 27th, so that would be Tuesday? Is that right? That'd be this coming Tuesday? This is Lindsay Davis, and this is A Comedy of Terrors, the new Flavia Alba novel. What have we got here? In first century Rome, the December festival of Saturnalia is a celebration of the sun's rebirth. Nominally, a time for family, for presents, lights, but in reality, it's a drunken riot. It's also the backdrop of Lindsay Davis's new historical mystery, which comes out on July 27th. And when Flavia Alba's husband, Tiberius, becomes a target, it's time for her to take matters into her own hands. Some people look forward to Saturnalia all year, but not Flavia Alba. Albia, the daughter and successor of private informer Marcus Didius Falco, about whom Lindsay Davis has written 24 books, is twiddling her thumbs with no clients during the festival. Add to that the domestic stress of overexcited children, the 2 bereaved nephews now part of the household, and a bilious guest. Everyone expects Albia to make everything run smoothly, but she doesn't want to be maternal. She wants to work. Meanwhile, her magistrate husband and the 4th cohort are battling organized crime interests that are going to war over the festival nuts. Nuts being both the snack and missile of choice for tipsy celebrants. This year, a rival gang is homing in on the action, leading to a series of accidental poisonings, then bloody murder of rival nut sellers, and finally a gruesome warning to Tiberius from the hidden criminal powers. These Flavia Albia novels, she's the successor of Marcus Didius Falco. and takes up his job as a private informer and investigator in Imperial Rome. The series started with the Ides of March, I think, or the book called the Ides of something. Was it the Ides of April? Yeah, it starts off with the Ides of April. I read that novel and first laughed and then got seriously irritated at the infiltration of 21st century politics into Roman historical fiction. And I don't mean that Lindsay Davis prefers the reds to the blues. I mean that Marcus Didius Falco was a tough guy. Lindsay Davis shot him to beloved status among fans for the way he talked like Sam Spade, only in a toga. And that went on for book after book after book, where Falco could be relied upon to have a gritty kind of physical courage in a tight spot. Him and his friends were often roughed up by gangsters or did the roughing up, did the threatening, that sort of thing. And I loved it. I thought it was just fine. Totally anachronistic, of course. You sacrifice the verisimilitude of Roman historical fiction when you pick up a Marcus Didius Falco novel. A lot of the Roman details will be true, but not the feeling at all. You can't transpose the one world to the other, not that tightly. But it doesn't matter because they were so entertaining. Then I read the first book by about Falco's successor. And I was expecting something completely different. There would have to be something completely different, and instead it isn't completely different. Flavia Albia in that first book reads exactly like Marcus Didius Falco, grabbing people by their togas, effectively their lapels, telling them, look, you're going to come clean with the info, bub, or you're going to regret it, or you're going to be missing a few teeth. This is a 5'2" woman in ancient Rome when she was the property of her male relatives. When she could not in any way have even the rudiments of anything like exercise, much less serious physical exercise, when she could not be able to do the things that Marcus Didius Falco did. And the reason I mentioned 21st century politics is because 21st century politics emphasizes an equality of outcome rather than an equality of opportunity. 21st century politics says, no matter who you are, you should be great at everything. And if you aren't great at everything, it's because some white man is holding you down. But not any other reason. There won't be any other reason. There won't be any reason that has anything to do with biology, with a 1,000-year-old culture. There won't be any reason like that. It will only be because you're being oppressed. When, in reality, in the first case in the Ides of April, the first time that Flavia Albia did that to any Roman man, even a friendly Roman man who wanted to help her, who wanted to give her information to help her with her case, the very first time she did that, the man in question would have balled up his fist and beaten her to a pulp with the full approval of her male relatives. So there's anachronism, and there's anachronism. You can't have a 5'2" young woman walking around ancient Rome, tough talking guys. It just doesn't work. It's ridiculous. You might as well have her able to wield the force or fly for short bursts of time through the air. You might as well do that. And it took me right out of the story. Every time it happened in that first book, it took me right out of the story. I read the second book. What was the second one called? Enemies at Home. And thought largely the same thing. I thought not only is the idea of a tough-talking female private investigator in Imperial Rome absolutely absurd on every level, and that is not just me, cishet white old guy saying, oh, blah, blah, blah. No, I don't actually do that about anything on any subject. I'm perfectly willing to go with the flow. I'm perfectly willing to suspend disbelief, but not to the extent of a character in ancient Rome having command of the force. Not having a character in ancient Rome say, well, I'm a Roman housewife, and I'm the daughter of the star of a previous show. But when I really want answers, I go into my study just off the main atrium of the house, and I don my Iron Man armor. And the cybernetic enhancements to me really help me in my case. If I read a Roman historical novel like that, it wouldn't matter whether or not I was part of the oppressive patriarchy or not. I would think that's absurd. That's just absurd. That isn't anything. I mean, the willing suspension of disbelief has limits, right? It's a compact between the author and the audience. It's not the audience just surrendering completely. It's not the author saying, well, according to this compact, I get to do whatever I want. And the second book struck me as the same way, and also as a huge missed opportunity. Unlike this author, very unlike this author, Lindsay Davis is usually extremely clever. That's why the Didius Falco novels were so enjoyable for so long. They never actually started to eat their own entrails. Usually the series that long, if you are commissioned to read the 25th book, you want to kill yourself by the time you get 5 pages in. Think of Janet Ivanovich, for instance, but not in that series. And I thought about this as a terrible missed opportunity. What if you sat back and said, all right, well, what if a young 5'2" woman in Imperial Rome wanted to take up her father's mantle and be a private investigator? How would she do that, given the limitations of the day? Instead, it's 21st century revisionism and also identity politics, in that all the limitations of the day are social constructs created by evil white men, and that they don't exist for real in any other way. We see that ideology is rampant in the 21st century, where ideologues who love that kind of thinking have said that even physical gender is a creation of white maternity ward doctors. And everything else all the way down the line. I have seen proponents of this view actually say in YouTube videos, you know, people always say that the average male human has much greater upper body strength than the average female human. That's, of course, a construct. That's a myth of the patriarchy. That's not true. In the 21st century, you take what you want to be true, and you not only say that it is true, but you say the reason why you've ever been told it isn't true is because somebody lied to you, somebody's oppressing you. That isn't actually reality at all, and you would hope that the one place that it would keep its nose out of would be historical fiction, which likes to hew to not only the facts of a previous era, but the tenor of a previous era. It is not possible, in other words, is what I'm saying. It is not possible for the basic premise of the Ides of April to be true. Not the way it's done. And not the way it was done in the second book either. And I confess, after that, I sort of dropped out of this series. It didn't look like it was going to change, so I just sort of dropped out. Now, I will try it again. This is due in soon enough so that I can read it today. I will read this today and see if this novel is the same. I love this author. I love her writing. I love her plotting. I want to think the best of this. I even loved her huge English Civil War novel, which not a lot of people did. I read it and really liked it. I've actually reread it. I'm going to try this. I will try this, and maybe I will go back. I'm pretty sure I have the Ides of April here. Maybe I'll go back and read that again. Maybe I missed something. I don't think so. I was paying pretty close attention that first time. And maybe you, as a reader, aren't the same. Maybe you're made of sterner stuff than I am. Maybe the fact that this 5'2" young girl is grabbing other Romans and saying, look, enough with the cute talk. I don't want to have to slap you around. When she would never dream of doing that. It would not be part of her mental makeup. That is not me being repressive. It would never enter her mind to do. Any more than it would enter the mind of a young woman today in the 21st century that she's not dressed to go outside unless she's wearing a whalebone hoop skirt. That would never cross her mind. It's not part of her culture anymore. Same thing is true in the other direction. It would never cross the mind of a young woman in that book to say such a thing. And the men would not react with, all right, calm down. They wouldn't do it. It just wouldn't happen. It might as well be Anakin Skywalker wielding the Force. But maybe that doesn't bother you enough. Maybe I would suggest, if you're a reader of historical fiction, that it should. I would suggest that if you read historical fiction and that happens and you cheer and say, you go, girl, that maybe you've had a little too much Twitter 21st century politics, and maybe you need to dial it back and detoxify. But one way or another, I will try this one. It was very nice of folks at, is this Minotaur? Yeah, Minotaur Books to send this. I'll give it a try. Maybe the fact that Flavia has a husband, I don't know, that might change the dynamic a little. Who knows? One way or another, we will see. I'll give it a try. That's why you haven't heard me talk about this series on this channel, because those first two novels, I just thought, okay, well, I know what you're doing here, and I know why you're doing it, but you can't do it. You can't do it. It's just, I don't make the rules here, I believe, is the 21st century phrase. You just can't do it any more than you could have a young, first year of marriage housewife in Puritan New England doing the same thing. It would never have happened, not in a million years. You have to come up with another way. You have to work within the boundary of the historical period you have chosen. Otherwise, why are you writing historical fiction? Why not just set it in the 21st century where You Go Girl works? In the 21st century, there isn't a month that goes by that we don't get a Hollywood blockbuster movie in which a young woman who is 5 feet tall, soaking wet with rocks in her pockets, handily dispatches the hired goons of, a whole room full of gun-toting hired goons. Handily, easily does that. And there was a Saturday Night Live skit that saw this coming, of course, and hilariously made fun of it in a way that could never be rebroadcast. That skit can never be rebroadcast. Where, I forget who it was. I think it was the guest star who played the sassy female PI. I don't remember who the actress was, but she would do that in this skit. It was Will Ferrell was part of the cast at the time, a bunch of other guys. She would do that. She would walk into the room and say, "Look, I don't want to have to get cuter in this." The whole humor of the skit was that once she talked to them that way, they just beat the crap out of her because she's 5 foot tall, and because the heteronormative patriarchy myth about men having much greater upper body strength than women is not actually false. It's actually true. One way or another, that skit will never be rebroadcast. Saturday Night Live would be completely nuclear canceled if it were. But that's what it was making fun of. And those of you who are dyed-in-the-wool fans of, for instance, Buffy the Vampire Slayer had better know the show well enough to know why it is an exception to the rule. Buffy is the Slayer. She is the chosen one. She has much greater physical strength. Otherwise, she couldn't do what she does. Anyway, we will see. I will give this a read. I'm actually curious to see what will strike me and what won't. Will I get through the whole book without being yanked out of the story the way I was in those first two? We shall see. And then we have a box, and it's a repurposed Amazon box, so it's one of you misbehaving. It's one of you sending me something. Very dramatic curtain blowing here. I'd much rather have the dramatic curtain blowing than apocalyptic noise levels. I see the sender's name, a well-known malefactor on this channel. Okay, so what is this? Oh, right. Oh, great. Okay. You actually emailed me about these. Oh, this is so much fun. A couple of books sent from one of you, because those of you who are new to the channel, this is the strangest parasocial relationship anywhere on YouTube. Okay? I send you things, but it's not my merch. I send you things that I find, that I think you might want, or that you ask for. And you send me things. It's not how it's supposed to work at all. The sending is supposed to be all one way, from you to me, and it's all supposed to be in the form of money. But we don't do that, the parasocial relationship, correctly on this channel. Instead, it's more like, what's the word? It's not used in the 21st century anymore, so it's falling out of Webster's. Friendship. That's right. It's more like a friendship. So you sent me books. So the first one is by Judith Flanders. This got a lot of press. Oh, this is lovely. Oh, thank you so much. Good Lord. These are ex-library copies, and the first one is Judith Flanders, and this is Inside the Victorian Home, a portrait of domestic life in Victorian England. Nice big thing. It's got ex-library book, so it's got not only the category sticker on the cover, but also this nice plastic cover. And this is full of illustrations. I remember this book. It got lots and lots of critical attention when it came out. Probably 20 years ago, I want to say 20 years ago. 2003, almost 20 years ago. So Inside the Victorian Home, I haven't read this since 2003, so that's great. This next one, also kitted up for the library, is Faith in a Seed, the first publication of Thoreau's last manuscript. Do any of you remember this from your bookstore? This also sold like the dickens when it came out. Uh, let's see here. I want to say this was in the 90s. 1993. The publication of Faith in a Seed is a major literary event. In addition to several of Thoreau's late natural history writings, it contains the hitherto unpublished work, The Dispersion of Seeds, his last important research and writing project, and now his first new book to appear in 125 years. While the existence of this manuscript has not been a secret, the work has remained unknown to the general public and inaccessible to most scholars until now. In the words of noted Thoreau scholar Robert Richardson, whose thoughtful introduction illuminates this volume, it added a whole new chapter to our understanding of Thoreau's life. And this thing also got an enormous amount of press. It's a Thoreau book that I read when it came out, and it was one of a tiny handful of books in the 1990s that severely tempted me, somehow, to get back into reviewing. I knew as soon as I read this that it was going to be part of an enormous critical conversation. And I wanted to be part of that conversation. And I talked myself out of it. In the early 1990s, I was very much talking myself out of returning to book reviewing. But the draw isn't only talking about the book. It's also to be part of that conversation. That huge communal conversation is fantastic when it happens. It doesn't happen with every book, obviously. It's only once in a while that pretty much everybody will review something, or that a large majority of review organs will allot space for such a thing. And I have a very, very good instinct for picking which of those books that will happen with. It's been honed over many, many decades. I can look at the spread of publisher catalogs for the upcoming season in any year, and I can pretty much guarantee you a few of the books. Some of them are easy calls, right? Like, for instance, Jonathan Franzen has a new book coming out. That's an easy call. Anybody who reviews fiction will review that book. But that's partially a product of a publicity machine. And not everything is like that. This was not part of a publicity machine at all. You just knew that it would happen. I can look at a publisher's catalog and pretty much tell. I love that. And when I see that now that I'm firmly ensconced back in the critical reviewing world, now when I see one of those books, I immediately start beating the bushes everywhere. All the venues that will say hi to me, I will immediately start beating the bushes to be part of that communal conversation, because it's such a thrill. It's such a thrill. As I've said many times before, when it comes to the critical world, I'm not in it for the money. Yes, I do make my living off it, but I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it for the sheer fun of that communal conversation, and occasionally to get blurbed on Crime and Punishment, or Tale of Genji, or the Bible. So there you go. That's the mail for today. Faith in a Seed. How wonderful. I haven't read this in forever. Inside the Victorian Home. Likewise. Haven't read it in forever. Going to be so much fun to go back to it. Then we have Comedy of Terrors, the new Lindsay Davis novel, also set in ancient Rome, but not starring Marcus Didius Falco. And finally, The Arbornaut by Ben Glowman, which I have already read and strongly, strongly recommend. It's a terrific book. Just everything that you want out of first-person natural history writing. Just something that it's a little bit tricky in critical circles to say this, and yet all of them do, but I suspect that it will be something of a classic, that it will become something of a classic. But one way or another, that's the mail on Sunday. Let's not get used to mail on Sunday. It's just luck that I found these things sitting in a corner outside, in a dark corner outside. Who knows how long they've been sitting there. They were of no interest to Frida. When we hit the ground, she is launched to go and find people and scream at them to cuddle with her. She doesn't ask them nicely. I've asked her many times, why don't you ask people nicely? Why do you yell at people to come over and pet you? Fortunately, everybody in the neighborhood finds it adorable. So she gets away with it somehow. But anyway, that was Sunday mail. No more mail until tomorrow. So we will reconvene then and see what we can find. Thank you, BookTube.